Hi there. Welcome to Parental Rights Florida. Tonight we're going to be interviewing Jennifer Pippen. But before you do, let me give you a little introduction about Parental Rights Florida and who we are. My name is Patty Sullivan, and my husband Jim and I have been serving for Parental Rights Florida here as the state coordinators, volunteer state coordinators since 2012. Our national organization is parentalrights.org. Parentalrights.org was founded by Michael Ferris. Michael Ferris saw many years ago. He's a constitutional attorney. He works with the Alliance Defending Freedom now. He's the CEO and the president of Alliance Defending Freedom now. Many years ago, he saw that there was beginning to be a trend of government overreach throughout the United States in different states, of government overreach into the lives of families, and especially into the rights of parental rights and their responsibility for their own children. So he began this organization called parentalrights.org and Parental Rights Foundation. So if you'd like to find out more information about them, please go to those websites. You can also, sorry about that. You can also go to parentalrightsfl.org to find out more about parental rights here in Florida and what we're doing legislatively to get bills passed that are protecting our parental rights here in Florida. And so in 2012, my husband and I became the state coordinators for this organization, and we've been working with a number of legislators to pass rights on behalf of parental rights here in Florida. A few years ago, we started working with Representative Erin Grohl, who is the representative for District 54, and she created what we call the Parents' Bill of Rights. And you can find out more information about that if you go to our website, parentalrightsfl.org. And it passed last year in last year's legislative session. It passed through all three committees on the House side. And then it also passed on the House, completely passed, and it passed through 2 out of the 3 committees on the Senate side, and that was led by Senator Kelly Stargel, and it did not pass all the way through the Senate, so we're going to be starting all over again in the spring session of 2021. And if you're a parent here in Florida, we want to encourage you because it's about a grassroots movement, full-time families and parents at home and jobs and everything else, but working together as volunteers for this state organization. And your legislator here in Florida needs to hear from you. We've made it very easy for you. You can go to our website, parentalrightsfl.org, and you can download our free ebook that explains why we need the Parents' Bill of Rights passed here in Florida. There's a legislative packet that you can completely print out. You can walk right into your representative or your state senator who represents you in Tallahassee and get involved in the movement, because we're seeing increasing overreach here in the state of Florida in the last few years of government entities that are kind of confused about where parents' rights begin and where they end. And we're going to talk a little bit about an example tonight. It happened right here in my local county. And we're going to talk a little bit about it with Jennifer Pippen, and I want to introduce her right now. Before we have her talk, I want to tell you a little bit about Jennifer. She's a mother of 2. She's a mom and a nurse. She's been a nurse for a number of years, working in a hospital as a nurse. And she graduated from high school in 2003. She moved to Vero Beach, Florida shortly after that and attended college, graduated from college. And she has multiple licenses and degrees and certificates in healthcare. Like I said, she is a nurse. And she's been working in healthcare since she was 14 years old. And her heart is to help people and to help families. And many people throughout her family are in the healthcare industry. And she has a wonderful husband and her 2 children. And she's going to tell us a little bit. She's been fighting right here locally in our school district on behalf of parents. And she's going to share a little bit tonight about that. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Patty. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining us. And we want to give you an opportunity to share what's been going on here locally. Can you share a little bit about what's been going on here locally in regard to parental rights and what you saw happening within the school district. We know we had COVID start and they had the shutdown of the schools, and then they tried to reopen them. And you've been majorly impacted as a parent in that regard. Can you share a little bit about that and what's going on and what brought you to this place of feeling like your parental rights are being not respected and completely disregarded?
Sure. Thank you so much again for having me. Yes. So when COVID hit in March, the schools were immediately shut down, and
Right.
we didn't know obviously how long it was going to be, if it was going to be a couple weeks, a month. We were not sure. And then when they had the reopening plan, they said they were going to reopen. We were so excited because at that point in time, we were kind of at the peak in July. We weren't sure what was going to happen in August. And so we were getting all these little podcast things from the school board. We were super excited.
And
Um,
what's this school district?
it's Indian River County. Yep.
Okay.
So school district of Indian River County is
Okay.
the
Okay.
board.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So they were going, bonkers with this reopening plan. And again, we were so excited because the kids at this point hadn't been in school since March 13th. So it was
Wow.
a huge deal.
Right.
It was a huge deal. And so many kids didn't go to summer camps because they weren't sure, they had masking. They didn't want their kids, masked out, outdoors. So it
Totally.
was huge that these kids were going to go back and be able to see,
Sure.
their friends and their teachers. So at first, with the reopening plan, they gave us three options, which was great. Option one was brick and mortar schools. You're going, you're in there, you're doing it. Option two was virtual, and then option three was transition. So
Right.
you start virtual, and then when you were ready with your child to go into brick and mortar, you were able to do that. And at that time, they said that masking would only be on buses. So I was like, perfect. I can drop my kids off at school. They'll never have to wear a mask. This is perfect. And
Right.
then as things progress,
So
getting
what they
close.
say they said that they would be optional. Is that what they said initially?
No, they just said masking would only be on the buses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow.
and that was about three or 4 weeks before school started. So that was the only time that they said that they would be masked.
Okay.
And then a week later, they said when social distancing couldn't happen, masks would have to be worn.
Okay.
Yeah. And they assured us, hey, we're going to be able to social distance. We still have time. We can do this. So 2 weeks now, and school's about to start.
Sure.
So then they pushed it back another 2 weeks and said they needed more time to prepare.
Okay.
They
Sure.
saw more children returning to brick and mortar schools. So they knew that they were going to have to social distance more and, make more accommodations. So,
Okay.
so they pushed it back, which is fine. I mean, everybody was like, okay, they're going back at this
I
point.
mean,
So
it was a difficult situation, and we know that they were doing the best they could just to,
sure.
to get things going and moving. So of course.
Absolutely. And they were meeting with the health department. They were meeting with Cleveland Clinic. They were meeting with local pediatricians. I was on the phone a lot with the school board, just trying to
Sure.
see, from a healthcare end, what are you guys doing? This is a virus. What are you guys doing to make sure, A, the children are safe, B, everything is smooth, and I even offered help, like, hey, if there's anything that I can do to help or any advice I can give, anything like that, because I want to help. It involves my children as well.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of nieces and nephews that are in Indian River County School District, so it didn't just affect me personally, it affected my family as well. So they pushed back school 2 weeks, and then it said masks will be worn, pick up, drop off, basically any time except for when you were able to social distance or eat. And they were not able to social distance. They were not able to do it with the numbers, and it wasn't adding up.
Okay.
So, we trusted the school board. Okay, they're going to fix this. Again, they pushed school back 2 weeks. Like they're going to work this out. They have to work this out. So the kids go back to school, and we find out that they are masked almost the entire day, with the exception of eating.
Wow.
And and even outside, there was issues with that teachers at first asking children to wear them at PE, running the mile with a mask on. The kids were feeling.
So was there guidelines that the teachers were supposed to follow, or
Yes. So with with the original reopening plan, they were not supposed to be worn outside. Not during recess, not during PE, during hope class, for the high schoolers. So there was a real big communication barrier problem there because I was personally calling with parents. We would three-way call because a lot of them didn't have that reopening guide in front of them. They didn't know.
The
So I
teacher,
would call, right,
okay,
the teachers
right.
didn't know. The
Mhm.
teachers didn't know. So we would call, obviously the teacher first, and then we would call the principal.
Sure,
And then if nothing was resolved, then we would call the school board. We kind of went, the chain of command.
sure, which is the right thing to do. Yeah,
Sure, sure. But we wanted the principals to be aware. So this way it didn't happen to another student. If we went straight to the school board, these principals, I feel, would have been out of the loop.
right.
Um, and so that's kind of what was working for us. And honestly, probably for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I called a principal every day with an issue, whether it was on the playground or it was recess, or there was even one instance where students were social distanced outside running the mile, but the coach told them they should get a mask with a respirator to be in his class.
Okay.
And
So it sounds like there was a lot of confusion that the teachers really didn't understand the guidelines, or if they did, they were adjusting them to whatever they felt or thought um, that they wanted it to be. But then secondly, you know, what I appreciate about you is that you're not just looking to find something wrong. You were actually trying to be a help to talk to the other parents and the teachers to, help make a difference in it instead of just a what they call a complainer, because we know that, parents' concerns are legitimate, and they need to be able to share those concerns when they feel like it's necessary. And that's what you were doing, right? So you were trying
absolutely.
to make these things known, that there was a little bit of confusion. Things were kind of upside down. And it was very confusing for the kids and for the parents as well, right?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. And everybody, this was all new. We've never done this before.
Sure.
We've never masked students. We've never masked teachers. They had an MOU that they have signed that they're masking their teachers till December 8th. That was signed by the union.
Right. Mhm.
So all of these protocols were new. The one-way hallways, the plexiglass up in the offices,
Right.
everything has changed. They had students in the high school, if they had one class here, they may have to go up the steps to go around to do the one-way hallway. So everything was new. And I never felt like, oh my gosh, I have to blame these people, or who needs to get in trouble for this. It was more, I thought of it as an educational end. What
Sure.
can we do so this doesn't happen to another student or another teacher or a staff
What
member?
what was happening to the students? I mean, what kind of things were happening to the children that would cause concern?
Sure. Well, and again, in the first couple of weeks, since we're kind of just going in chronological order here, the first couple of weeks was mainly the outdoor stuff. They're feeling like they were going to pass out. Multiple students were going to the clinic with
We are in
headaches.
Florida and it's hot,
Yes,
right?
it is. Oh, and at that time it was 80, 90 degrees, and here these kids are running a mile in a mask, or
Wow.
playing kickball in a mask. And and some kids it may not affect, honestly. I mean, some kids, but a lot of kids it did. It
Right.
did. And because of the COVID-19 protocols in place, these nurses, whether they're CNAs, LPNs, RNs in the health clinics, if you had a headache and that was one of the protocols, they were sending them home for possible COVID-19 infections.
Right.
They were, getting investigated by the health department. They were having to come back with a negative COVID test or go to their pediatrician. There was, in the beginning, they were saying, oh, well, stomach viruses are a possible thing that could be coming from COVID-19 in adolescents. So
So
kids,
that's important because not only what you're sharing, but I heard it from a number of different parents that their children were being sent home for things that were not COVID related, but there was a fear involved. And these parents were having to take their children to the doctor, and some people with or without insurance were having to put money out of their own pocket. Like um, one lady's child was sent home because of a stomach ache, and it was just a simple, bathroom problem. And, um, how many hundreds of dollars later having to prove that the child didn't have COVID. So there were a lot of different situations like that were clearly, these kids were being sent home for things that were not related to that. Is that correct?
Exactly. You
Yeah.
are exactly
Yeah.
correct. It was happening all the time. And at one point, the board members were saying, well, how many of these children are getting sent home or getting sent to the doctor for things as, a girl in high school, she was on her menstrual cycle and she had a headache. She got sent home.
Wow.
Yeah, children in kindergarten who had headaches or were nervous, and again, because they're masked, they're socially distanced from children, there's this partition between everybody, even the teachers, and they're in a mask or a shield. And so many emotional things, and people don't think a lot about that. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be having mouth sores or having your face break out or passing out to realize, like, this is huge on the mental and psychological end, especially for these incoming kindergartners who've never done school before. They don't know what to expect.
Right. And we had a number of different instances where like you said, it wasn't, I do want you to get into what was happening, like you said, it was outside initially. And then, but you have children who are actually experiencing psychological issues and anxiety who normally wouldn't, because they were having trouble breathing in
Mm-hmm.
these masks. But then, so we had a number of those situations, but then it started moving into actual short-term physical conditions with these children, right? So what happened?
Yes,
What were
yes,
the
absolutely.
that
So
you
a
were
lot of that
personally
was.
aware of?
Mhm. So a lot of this was going on, and even if children had a medical note from a doctor that said that masking is not good for them, whether it be, asthma or whatever, conditions that they have, there is, I think the last time I looked at it, there's 23 different conditions in children,
Right.
reasons why they shouldn't be masked.
Mhm.
So it's taking a month to 6 weeks for these children to even be put in a shield, or even to not have to wear a mask with a physician's note saying this is not in the best children of the children. And
Right.
when these parents were calling and emailing and showing up to board meetings and calling the teacher, and they were getting nowhere. There was a set of children who had to move schools because their school that they were at was unable to socially distance them in any of their classes. They had to change schools to be put in a shield. Um, so it was traumatizing for them to be going to this school for so many years. Now they're changed schools. Now everybody's in a mask, but they're in a shield, and they're kind of put in the corner. They were doing masked breaks in class. Some students, they were being told to go stand in the corner and face the wall to breathe, kind of like a punishment,
Yeah.
or sit at the desk in the corner and you can, take your mask down to breathe. Where the next person who needs a mask break is going to go sit there. It's not sanitized in
Right.
between,
Sure.
so it's
So you
it's
had
been
you had
so
you had these
overwhelming.
multiple things happening. It sounded like you were connecting with a number of different parents that were also having these things happen to their children, right? So you had the psychological issues starting to manifest in the children. You had the anxiety. You had the teachers who seemed to be confused in handling the situations. Then you started having children with physical conditions. I heard of children having what they call mask mouth, where they were actually having infections in their mouth and having to have those infections drained. I heard of rashes on children's faces, sores behind the ears, because there wasn't a lot of mask breaks going on.
Mhm.
Okay, is that correct?
That is correct.
And
Yes.
then on top of it, you started having situations with quarantines with the children. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where one child would be diagnosed with COVID, and the however many kids in the class would have to be quarantined for the next 2 weeks. And statistically, you shared with me that 99% of children recover from COVID. And not only that, there's been 500 quarantine cases here in Indian River County in the school district, and not one of those children from the quarantine that had been quarantined has tested positive for
Yes,
COVID. So you
that's
have
right.
kids being put out of school for 2 weeks because someone else has been diagnosed with COVID. Those children are missing school. There's no lesson plans developed for them when they're at home. I knew of another situation where the child had just come back after 2 weeks, then had to go back out for 2 weeks because they were exposed again. So
Yes.
you have all these things happening, which is complete upheaval. So, from my understanding, you and many of these parents started showing up after you had spent multiple hours contacting the teachers, the school district, the principals, and you started showing up because really the CDC has said that masks are a medical device. And here in Florida, one of the actual current statutes actually states that parents have the right to determine what's in the best interest as far as their medical issues regarding their children in, along with the medical professional of their choice. So you have medical devices with these masks being dealt with these children, and parents just started realizing that this current law is still in effect. These elected officials have kind of overstepped the boundary of a current law. Okay, when I say parental rights, it's not something good and happy and just something that I would hope would be a right. This is a current statute, right? And for these medical issues to be being decided by the school district and also by the county health department. So it's a disregard for the rights of parents in choosing their own medical care for their children. So, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you kept trying to find out what was going on, and you began to see how confusing it really was and how convoluted the whole thing really was. So you started showing up to school, the meetings, and really, what was the response of the school district during this time, and what was happening in that regard?
Sure, sure. Well, we did have so many parents and students that were having issues with, like you said, the dental issues. One of our group members, she went to her, she took her child to the dentist, and it
Mhm.
was for a 6 month checkup, just a routine thing. And they said, your son has like literally pus pockets underneath his tongue. They were taking pictures. They were
Wow.
showing her. Yeah, and they looked back at his 6 month visit prior and said, you had no issues, no cavities, no nothing. And they said that the bacteria and germs that was harboring from wearing a mask 7 hours a day was directly what caused this mask mouth. And
Wow.
yeah, she had a $400 bill that
Mhm.
day from the dentist, and she's waiting to reschedule surgery because her son cannot be in a mask after he has this procedure done.
Yeah. Sure.
And the dentist said directly it was related to wearing the mask.
Right. And these are situations where they're younger children. And even though, I mean, these parents are very engaged parents, they were trying to do the right thing. One mom I knew was sending her child with, 3 different masks. She was telling the child, like, change your mask because the moisture from the mask and the breathing in the mask was causing some of these rashes and things. And so they weren't getting mask breaks. And he's a young child and wasn't necessarily able to remember to change the mask, but they're being, in fact, these are parents who really want to do the right thing, but they were seeing more and more along with you that this is an overstep, and you began to realize that parents should be able to make these decisions for their own children. So, in your response in approaching the school district and the board, we did have 2 board members that realized that they wanted to put the ball back in the court of the parents and let them make this decision. And one of our board members actually called for a vote to make masks optional. When the vote came down, and she wasn't like saying instantaneous, it has to happen right now. She even said, "Okay, let's plan for January 2021. Let's make masks optional by then." But they wouldn't even give her that. So when the vote came down and the vote happened, um, the 2 board members who are also parents with children in the local school district, they did not pass that option.
That
Is
is
that correct?
correct. Right,
So
right.
what happened from there? with,
So basically, all they did was plan to make a plan. So she had to withdraw that. They were talking about other things that they would be doing, another plan. They wanted to do a children's bill of rights for masking, which is basically a picture poster of the same policy that they have now. They didn't change anything. It said optional masking for outside and things like that, where they don't even have masking for that now. So basically, it was a big, beautiful, colorful poster that they put in all the teachers' boxes for the next day after that meeting,
but
and they were to
this
display
was
it.
a result of you guys showing up to the school district meetings, showing them how confusing everything was, and that they
Yes,
weren't following the proper protocol that had already been implemented,
correct.
and that people were recognizing that this should be a parental rights issue. And it
Yes,
is a parental rights issue.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes,
So
we were
instead of
calling.
instead of doing what was right and putting the ball back in the courts of the parents, they started coming up with a plan about a plan. Or
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, we were calling, we were emailing, we were showing up. So the board meeting where they were going to determine whether they were going to do the optional masking, they had 260 emails that they read out loud. It took 2 days to do, and there was, I believe, 43 of us that showed up wanting the optional masking.
okay,
And they did have other, the other side, and
sure,
they had the teachers union show up and things like
okay,
that. But we were a strong voice for the parental rights. Like,
right,
you were asking our students to wear a medical device because they're wearing it for a virus, so it's considered a medical advice, device. We talked about them violating the sunshine laws. We talked about them violating the parental rights laws, and they, at first, when we first started showing up, like a month or so into school, we honestly thought that they were paying attention. We were sending them studies of how masking doesn't work. We were sending them studies of how children's are not the super spreaders of the coronavirus. We are trying to give them as many doctor peer reviewed studies as possible to help them. I mean, to help them help our children. And they kept telling us, we're going to look into this. We're going to do it. So we were very hopeful. So when this was shot down, and again, they just basically made a plan to make a plan after these 260 emails, 100 plus people speaking, and still to this day, there is no end in sight for the quarantining, the contact tracing, the mask mandates, and the parents have been completely taken off
now
as far
see,
as our
the
parental rights.
the organizational chart of this school district, if you go to the homepage and click on the organizational chart, it shows the parents and the citizens of this county at the top of the chart.
Mm-hmm.
And then it shows the school board, and then it goes down the line. So what we're seeing here is an upside down situation,
Sure, sure.
because gut, you know, whether people want to recognize it or not,
Mm-hmm.
public school is a government entity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it is a we the people movement. And parents have the right to make these decisions. And the public schools are here to serve the citizens of this county. And I think sometimes there's almost this sense that um, we owe, it's the other way around. We owe them a debt of gratitude. We do, which we do. They teach the children, they care for the children, but they're never to replace the parents.
Sure.
And um, in the school board listening to the parents, it almost sounds like there was a statement made that the parents were bringing complaints. And thankfully, one of the school board members spoke up and said, the parents are not bringing complaints. They are bringing concerns, and they have every right to be listened to and to be heard. And I think so, however, this all pans out, we know that this is a symptomatic problem of a bigger issue, is that government entities are not getting the fact that parents and families are the heart of the communities and the heart of the counties and the heart of the state and the heart of the nation. And unless we get back to the basic simple facts of that We would not have any of these agencies if it wasn't for having parents and families to begin with.
Absolutely.
And again, I want to talk about the fact that this is a current statute. This is a current law that an emergency mandate does not trump the current law, especially when elected officials, which the school board are elected officials, they had every ability to choose not to break the law, which gives parents the right to determine medical issues for their children with their pediatrician. Instead, they are not only making those decisions for those families, but they're also allowing the county health organization to make those decisions for the family. So they could have very easily turned it back upside down and allowed those current statutes to be in effect. So because of that, because you all did not feel heard, and that you like you said, you brought your own science to them, which 90, like you said, 99% of children, school age children, recover from this virus. Out of over 500 quarantine cases, not one of those children in the quarantine had tested positive for COVID. There were 3 local schools, 2 private and 1 charter, that were not masking their students. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, they are not doing any COVID-19 protocols that the school district is. They are sanitizing. They're doing temperature checks in some of them, but they
Sure.
are not
Yeah.
masking any of the students or teachers. And they are not quarantining healthy students, and they are not contact tracing if somebody does test positive.
Wow. So, so because they voted against making those masks optional, and again, it wasn't one of those situations where it was like people were just saying right now, you know, so a couple of the board members were trying to say, okay, let's give it some time. Let's have a plan to get to that place, but they wouldn't even give them that. So, you and your group of parents and families kind of really built relationships together, started really standing up not only for parental rights, but for individual liberty and those types of things. What did you all decide to do based on the response that you were getting and the actual, like, you really did not feel like you were being listened to? You were being
Sure.
heard, but
Right.
not listened to.
Exactly, exactly. And they put out a survey for parents and teachers, and 48% of parents wanted none or optional masking.
Wow.
So if
Okay.
you look at, I mean, you take half of your students that are in, brick and mortar and virtual, all of those options I said, 48% didn't want any masking or they wanted optional masking.
Right.
And so we're like, okay, I mean, obviously you can't say, well, majority rules, because it's almost split exactly in half. 30% of teachers wanted optional or no masking. So we felt like at this point, we did the survey, we called, we emailed, we showed up. I mean, we were there until midnight one night. 2
Oh,
days later, we were there
wow.
at 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. again, listening to the emails and the board speak and everything. And when they determined at the end of that, after 15 hours, all they did was plan to make a plan. We got together and we said, we can't do this anymore. We need legal help, because
Okay.
we don't know at this point what else we could do. Because at that point, we have EMTs, we have nurses, we have engineers, we have some amazing parents, and we pulled them from all different angles. We have a paralegal. We could not think of anything else to do other than get some legal help, because we knew it was a legal issue. We just didn't know how to achieve it.
Wow. Okay. So when they basically voted against the option, children are there. There's no real consideration as to I think they were making an attempt. I mean, one of our school board members really, she continued to fight, even though she was voted against, and thankfully another school board member joined with her. They voted together. They stood on behalf of current parental rights statutes, and they were given an opportunity. She also fought for and was able to get the fact that now they have to have a designated space that if a parent walks in and tells a teacher, I want my child to have a designated space for whatever reason,
Sure.
not just an IEP, but if the child needs a break, there needs to be a designated space for that child to be able to have a setting without a mask throughout the day. She did win that victory, thankfully, but you
Yes.
as parents really had to come to a conclusion of where are you going from here as far as that legal help? What are you guys doing?
So we actually hired a lawyer. He's a constitutional lawyer out of Tampa. He is actually going to be serving the school board today with papers. If
It's
this,
today, Wednesday,
yes,
28th, okay,
yes,
October 28th.
and yeah, they will be receiving it. The courthouse will be receiving it today when the courthouse, actually presents it to the board.
Okay,
Is he said depending on because of COVID, it could be today or tomorrow, but he
okay,
is taking the lawsuit to the courthouse today.
great.
We have multiple families on it. We have elementary, middle, high schoolers.
Wow. Okay,
That was per his recommendation, so they don't just do these measures just for middle school or just for high school or just for elementary school.
okay.
We have families who have medical issues with the masking,
Mhm.
quarantining, contact tracing. We have dental issues and mental and psychological issues. So we
Wow.
have everything across the board per his recommendation. So they
And
can
also the
truly
current
see.
statute for parental rights as well.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that is one of the main things that he said that he's seeing and winning these cases on is the parental rights, statutes.
Okay, yeah. And so because I had somebody tell me, well, it's not just about, the parental rights issue here, it's about all parents' rights. And I understand that, but at the same time, if there is a current statute and you're okay with breaking it, then you're breaking the law. And that
Mhm.
statute is very clear. If anybody wants to see what these statutes are, you can go to our website, parentalrightsfl.org, and download this free ebook. It'll tell you exactly what your current Florida parental rights statutes are, and also what we can do about it to make sure that these government entities are not overstepping their boundaries. Now, this is a legislative issue. It's different than what Jennifer is doing with a lawsuit, but we would not have to have these lawsuits if this bill could be passed. Okay, so parents in Florida, please get involved in this area in particular. So what do you think, Jennifer, is the goal of this lawsuit? What are we trying to say? What are you trying to say through that?
Sure. The goal is, and again, all of these parents feel the same way. If masks are the best thing for a child's health per their parent, we absolutely want them to be able to mask their child. If they feel, a vaccine or whatever they feel is the best, that they discuss with their pediatrician or just husband and wife discuss for their children is fine. We want to have that same parental rights for our children.
Right.
Let's just take into account the tables were turned. Let's say that when children went to school, brick and mortar school, on August 24th, they said, you cannot wear a mask. You cannot wear a mask in the school. We're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Those parents would be furious. And if they felt that that was the best thing for their child, they should have the right to do that, as do we, if the tables are turned, to
Right.
not mask our children, knowing that it's not the best for their health. And like these poor children who are having so many issues, they still day in and day out have to wear these masks, or they can't go to brick and mortar school.
Right.
And that is what was told to us when it first reopened. It was for the healthy families where no one had any, comorbidities, pre-existing conditions, the healthy kids. If you had maybe a sick parent at home or grandparent at home, you could do option 2, which is virtual. You never have to step foot in school. But for all of us who know that education is best in a brick and mortar school with the teachers, the social development, that's why we chose to send our children to school. And they're quarantining. I mean, they just called yesterday. They quarantined another 16 students at the high school. They've done almost 500, probably over 500 now, healthy students. These students are not testing positive for the coronavirus if they're getting tested being quarantined. My daughter being one of them, she's quarantined. She gets to go back to school tomorrow. She's been quarantined for 2 weeks. And then they're off school Friday, off school Monday. So essentially, she's going to school one day in 3 weeks.
Right.
And her grades have suffered from it. I mean, she's not getting assignments as she should be. She has no teacher teaching her. She's basically teaching herself and not getting her assignments. So all of these parents are saying, listen, we're quarantining healthy children. We can't do that. We're not contact tracing.
Right.
We're not wanting to mask our, healthy children. And again, on the flip side, absolutely, if that's the best thing for a parent to do for their child, we have never said, nope, you are not allowed to mask your child. We're not doing that. Like, we want them to have the option. That's their right. And also, another thing is, not a lot of people know, but not one student who has contracted the coronavirus has transferred it to a staff member or a teacher in the United States. Not one case.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yes, not
That's
one
powerful.
case.
See, these are science facts. These are facts that are available if people want to hear them. And we have a real parental rights issue here because this is a slippery slope. Okay, this is something. It's way bigger than a mask. It's an issue of parents being able to determine what's in the best interest of their own children. Because quite frankly, it's not just about the mask. We are now aware that there is rapid testing kits in the different school districts throughout the state. And we know that they are locally here in Indian River County. They have not been brought into the into the schools yet. We don't know why, okay, for sure. But who is going to be testing these children with a rapid test in the school building?
You're exactly
Who's
correct.
going to be doing that without a parent knowing? Okay, so first it's masks, then it's rapid testing, and then they're going to stick a vaccine. So this is way bigger than a mask. This is about parents having the right. It is a current statute, and I'm going to read it to you right here. It says parents have the right to make medical decisions to address any needs of their own minor children. This is a matter between the parent, the minor child, and a competent health care professional chosen by the parent. That is a current law here in the state of Florida.
It is.
And for anything else to be happening other than that is a breaking of the law.
Sure.
And the reason that these government agencies are able to do that is because they do not understand the law. And parents are now fighting for those rights, and parents are now waking up to those rights. But my encouragement is, parents, wake up to your rights, but also wake up to your responsibility.
Yes.
Step up for your children and make those decisions for your children. Don't allow government agencies to overstep your boundaries anymore. But we have to be responsible for our children as well. So we're going to close in just a minute, Jennifer. But before we do, I want to share a little bit about the Parents' Bill of Rights. Representative Erin Grohl, who represents District 54 here in Florida. She's a brilliant attorney, a true parents' rights champion for the last 2 years, now going to be moving into the third year, is going to be sponsoring the Parents' Bill of Rights. And it will take every current parents' rights statute that's in the law right now in Florida. Right now, we do have plenty of parental rights that are in the laws. However, they're scattered throughout all over the statutes. And her bill, called the Parents' Bill of Rights, will take all of those current laws and bring them under one umbrella. And then will also give a clear understanding of how the government agencies need to develop plans to cooperate and to work with the parents. And that's how simple this Parents' Bill of Rights is that the confusion that we're seeing right here in this school district and throughout other places in this state and in this nation could clearly be cleared up if we had all of those parents' rights statutes brought under one umbrella. So we want to encourage you as parents to get involved in this grassroots movement. We need you to contact your local legislators to get them involved in it and to help them understand that they need to log on and sponsor this bill. And again, you can go to our website, parentalrightsfl.org, to download this free ebook, and you can also download it. We've made it so easy. You can download a free packet to walk right into your legislator to help them understand the very real need for this. It's so simple, so easy, and we wouldn't have to have this kind of confusion in the future. But I want to thank these parents. I want to thank you, Jennifer, for stepping up to the plate, even in the midst of all the confusion. And we're not fighting against school districts. We're not fighting against these government agencies. We are just standing up for what is right, and our children are ours. We brought them into this world, and we want to be responsible for them. And we also want to respect the family, and when government agencies, I believe, choose to honor the family, everything else kind of just falls into order. Wouldn't you agree?
I
And so,
absolutely agree.
before we end, Jennifer, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for, I'm sure it has not been easy for you and your family, especially your children, for the stand that you're having to take. But if there's anything else that you'd like to say in closing, I just want to give you an opportunity to say that.
No, thank you so much again. I appreciate everything. And I'll never forget that day that you called me and said, coming to the school board meeting. I have some information for you and I want to meet you. It was very amazing to be sitting in that meeting and feeling kind of lost and helpless. And I turn around and I see you and you're smiling and you have that information that I still have today and I bring it around with me. And it helps so many people just understand in layman's terms. I could talk about a surgery with you and to just break it down and say, listen, we fixed this and we did this and that's what this is. Because when you have a 213 page legislative thing, I don't know the law, it's hard to understand. But when you have something like this book, and everything's broken down and it's ABC and you can see it and you can explain it to somebody so easy, it's so helpful.
Right.
But if anybody is in Indian River County or surrounding areas, we're working with other school districts as well. We're working with other counties. I had a lady from Volusia County message me this morning when she saw a GoFundMe for the lawyer. And
Right.
I just try to give as much information as possible. But we are, we the people of Indian River County. And if you're not on Facebook, we also have an email address. It's we the people irc@gmail.com.
Okay.
And we're not just advocating for our county, we're advocating for anybody who needs help to restore their parental rights, because I didn't know much going into this. I've learned so much and I still have so much more to learn. So if I could pass that information, if we could pass that information on to other people, that's what we need to do. Because at the end of the day, it's our children only have us and we have to advocate for them.
Well, thank you. That's so important because we're doing it not just for ourselves, but for our children and for their future. And like you said, it's not just about the school district. It's about just restoring the understanding that if we didn't have families, if we didn't have parents, we wouldn't have children. And if we didn't have families, we wouldn't have a community or we wouldn't have school districts. So we all want to work together, and you all had to come to this point of doing this because this is what it is taking to get people's attention, to get involved, and then also to put things back in order. So we want to thank you, Jennifer, for joining us today, and we'll probably have you on again as things progress. And we just believe that as we take these stands together, that families are going to join in, and we want to support you. And we want to believe that as you move forward with all these families in Indian River County, that things can just progress. And we want to just believe that you and your children are going to hopefully be back. The kids will be back in school and hopefully without masks soon. But in the meantime, we want to thank you for joining us. And anyone who would like to find out more information about Jennifer's page, along with those other parents, it's We the People of Indian River County on Facebook. And if you want to find out more about the information about what we're doing legislatively here on behalf of parental rights here in Florida, you can find us on Facebook at parentalrightsfl.org, Florida on Facebook, and you can go to our website at parentalrightsfl.org. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.